The fluorescent lights in the probate office buzzed like dying insects. I sat in a leather chair that squeaked every time I shifted, my hands still smelling like hospital soap from 3 days ago when I held Dad's hand as he died. The lawyer, Mr. Palmer, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. The room went quiet. To my daughter, Megan Brooks, I leave the sum of $1. The words didn't make sense at first. I heard them, but my brain refused to process them. $1. My father left me $1. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who paid for my college, who called me every Sunday morning without fail, left me $1. Patricia, my stepmother of 3 years, squeezed my shoulder from behind. Her fingers dug into my skin just hard enough to hurt without leaving marks. She leaned down, her perfume overwhelming, and whispered in my ear, "Don't make a scene, sweetheart. Your father knew what he was doing." My chest burned, but I sat perfectly still. Around the conference table sat my Uncle Tom, my Aunt Sylvia, and 2 of Dad's business partners. Every single one of them avoided looking at me. They studied their hands, the table, the wall, anywhere but my face. The silence felt thick and suffocating. Patricia settled back into her chair beside the lawyer, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Her shoulders shook with what looked like crying, but when I caught a glimpse of her face in the reflection of the window, her eyes were completely dry. She was performing, playing the grieving widow for an audience. "The remainder of the estate," Mr. Palmer continued, his voice professionally neutral, including the house, investments, and all personal property, goes to Patricia Brooks. He paused. "Estimated value, $3.2 million. Uncle Tom shifted uncomfortably. Aunt Sylvia coughed. No one spoke up. No one questioned it. No one defended me. They just sat there, letting this happen, probably relieved it wasn't their inheritance being stolen. Patricia pressed the tissue to her nose and made a small sobbing sound that didn't match her dry eyes. "My name is Megan Brooks, and until 5 days ago I thought I knew what my life looked like. I'm 27 years old, a graphic designer, an only child. My mother died when I was 8, and after that it was just Dad and me for 19 years. He was my whole world. We had breakfast together every Saturday. He taught me about investments and responsibility. When I started my business, he was my first investor and my biggest supporter. He called me his mini-me, because we both organized our desks the same way and drank our coffee black. Then 3 years ago, he married Patricia at a Vegas chapel during a business trip. She was 42 to his 61, a former pharmaceutical sales representative with a bright smile and expensive taste. I tried to be happy for him. I wanted him to have companionship. But something about her always felt rehearsed, like she was playing a role. Now, sitting in this probate office, listening to her fake sobs, I understood why my instincts had screamed warnings I'd ignored. "There is one additional clause," Mr. Palmer said, glancing nervously at Patricia before continuing. "Megan Brooks is prohibited from contesting this will. Any legal challenge will result in her forfeiting the $1 inheritance and owing the estate $50,000 in legal fees." My breath caught. That clause was designed specifically to silence me, to ensure I couldn't fight back without risking financial ruin. It was strategic, calculated. Patricia's hand went to her throat, touching the diamond necklace my father had given her last Christmas, the one that cost more than my car. I hope everyone understands that this was entirely Thomas's decision. I tried to talk him into being more generous with Megan, but he was very firm about his wishes. Smooth, polished lies delivered with perfect timing. She made herself look innocent while painting my dead father as cruel. The audacity was almost impressive. Uncle Tom finally spoke. Maybe Thomas had his reasons. His voice was quiet, apologetic, but he said it anyway. Just like that, my family started accepting this fiction. The meeting ended quickly after that. People gathered their things, murmuring to each other in hushed tones. I heard fragments of their conversations as they filed out. Financial troubles, maybe? She did drop out of that consulting firm. Young people today don't understand money management. They were already rewriting history, creating narratives that made my father's alleged decision seem reasonable. Patricia had planted the seeds perfectly, and they were taking root in real time. No one questioned the woman who'd been in Dad's life for 3 years over the daughter who'd been there for 27. I stood slowly, my legs feeling distant and strange. Patricia approached me as the room emptied, her expression shifting to something that might have looked like compassion if you didn't look closely at her eyes. "I know this is difficult, sweetheart. Your father loved you, but he wanted to teach you independence. He thought you relied on him too much." She touched my arm gently. "This is actually a gift if you think about it." Gaslighting. Classic textbook gaslighting. The funeral was the next day. I stood beside the casket in a black dress I'd bought that morning because all my nice clothes were still at the house Patricia had already claimed. Dad looked peaceful, his hands folded across his chest. Someone had dressed him in his favorite navy suit. As people filed past, paying their respects, I noticed Patricia approach the casket. She reached down and carefully removed Dad's wedding ring from his finger. The gold band he'd worn for 3 years, the one that had replaced my mother's ring in the box where I'd seen it last. She slipped it into her purse quickly, glancing around to see if anyone noticed. Eyes met. She smiled slightly and mouthed, "For safekeeping." My hands clenched at my sides. That ring wasn't hers to take. Those were Dad's final belongings, meant to stay with him or go to family. But she took it anyway, right in front of everyone, and no one said a word. I watched her return to the front row, tissue in hand, ready to perform grief for the funeral service. After the burial, I drove to my childhood home, Dad's house. The 2-story colonial where I'd grown up, where every room held memories. I parked in the driveway and walked to the front door, my key already in my hand. The key didn't work. I tried it again, thinking maybe I'd used the wrong one. But no, this was definitely the front door key, the same one I'd had for 10 years. I tried the side door. Same thing. The locks had been changed. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Picked up new locks today for security. Come to the back door." Security. She'd changed the locks the same day we buried my father. Less than 6 hours after putting him in the ground, she'd already started erasing me from his house. I walked around to the back, my face burning with humiliation and rage I couldn't show. She opened the door wearing yoga pants and a casual sweater, her hair pulled back. Comfortable. Home. Like she'd lived here forever instead of 3 years. "I packed up your room," Patricia said brightly, stepping aside to let me in. "I figured you'd want your things." In the mudroom, stacked against the wall like garbage waiting for collection, were cardboard boxes. 6 of them, labeled in Patricia's neat handwriting. Megan's clothes, Megan's books, Megan's miscellaneous. My entire childhood, my entire presence in this house, reduced to 6 boxes. I walked past her into what used to be my bedroom. The walls were already painted a different color, pale gray instead of the blue I'd chosen when I was 16. The furniture was gone. My desk, my bookshelf, my reading chair. All of it removed. The room looked like I'd never existed. "I'm turning it into a yoga studio," Patricia explained from the doorway. "I need the space for healing. Grief yoga is very therapeutic." Healing. She was talking about healing while erasing every trace of me from my father's house the day we buried him. The cruelty was breathtaking in its efficiency. "I'll help you load the boxes," she offered, her voice dripping with false kindness. I made 3 trips to my car, carrying boxes that felt heavier than they should. Patricia didn't help despite her offer. She stood in the kitchen, sipping tea, watching me work. On my final trip inside, she handed me a plastic grocery bag. Some things I found in Thomas's office. Photos mostly. "I thought you might want them." She pressed the bag into my hands like she was doing me an enormous favor. "Your things." The way she said it, "your things," like she was a generous landlord letting a tenant collect their belongings after an eviction. Like this wasn't my father's house, my childhood home, my heritage. I looked inside the bag. Few framed photos of Dad and me. My college diploma, which had hung in his office. A stuffed rabbit I'd had since I was 5. Random items she deemed worthless enough to let me keep. "Thank you," I said flatly, refusing to give her the emotional reaction she wanted. She smiled. "Of course, sweetheart. Family takes care of family." The gaslighting never stopped. Even now, she played the generous stepmother while stealing everything. I sat in my car for a long time before driving away. Staring at the house through tears I refused to let fall where Patricia might see them. That's when I opened the grocery bag again and pulled out the photos. Dad smiling at my high school graduation. The two of us at the Grand Canyon 5 years ago. Him teaching me to change a tire when I was 16. Beneath the photos was a folded piece of paper. I opened it, confused because I didn't remember seeing it in the bag before. It was a copy of the will, not the official one from the lawyer's office, but what looked like a photocopy of an earlier draft. My heart started pounding as I read it. This version, dated 6 months before Dad died, left everything to me. The house, the investments, the business holdings, everything. Patricia wasn't mentioned except as the recipient of $50,000 and the right to stay in the house for 6 months after his death. I looked at the date again. 6 months ago. Then I compared it to the will Mr. Palmer had read. That one was dated 2 months ago, when Dad was already in the hospital, already weak from the cancer. Something was very wrong. I pulled out my phone and photographed every page of the old will draft. Then I examined the copy from the lawyer's office that Mr. Palmer had given me. The paper quality was different. The official will, the one that left me $1, was printed on bright white paper that looked fresh from the printer. The old draft was slightly yellowed, the edges worn from handling. Dad always printed important documents on his office's cream-colored cardstock. Always. It was his thing. He said it made them look more professional and legitimate. But this new will was on regular printer paper. Why would he change that for his final, most important document? I looked at the signature. Dad's handwriting had been flowing and confident, with a distinctive loop on the T in Thomas and a flourish on the final S in Brooks. This signature looked stiff, careful, like someone had traced it slowly instead of signing naturally. I took photos of the signature from multiple angles, zooming in on the details. My hands were shaking, but not from grief anymore. From something else. From suspicion crystallizing into certainty. Patricia had done something. I didn't know exactly what yet, but she had manipulated this somehow. The funeral reception was held at a country club Patricia had chosen. I arrived late, after most guests were already eating and drinking and sharing stories about Dad. People kept approaching me with sad smiles and empty condolences. "Your father was a wonderful man. He's in a better place now. At least he's not suffering anymore." I nodded and thanked them, playing my role as the grieving daughter. But I was watching Patricia work the room. She moved from group to group, touching arms, accepting hugs, her performance flawless. The devoted widow, destroyed by loss but being brave for everyone. I overheard her talking to Dad's business partner, Mr. Chen. Megan took it very hard. She's been so emotional lately. Thomas was worried about her stability, you know. That's why he structured his will the way he did. He wanted her to learn to stand on her own. My face burned. She was telling people that Dad thought I was unstable. That his decision to leave me nothing was some kind of tough love life lesson. She was controlling the narrative, making sure everyone saw me as an emotional, dependent child who needed to be cut off for my own good. The gaslighting continued all afternoon. Every time someone approached me with questions about the will, Patricia appeared nearby, steering the conversation. "You know how emotional you get, sweetheart," she said when Uncle Tom asked if I was okay. "Your father was always worried about your stress levels." When Aunt Sylvia mentioned that the will seemed unusual, Patricia sighed deeply. Thomas made me promise not to tell people this, but Megan had been asking him for money constantly. He felt like she was taking advantage of his generosity. The will was his way of teaching her independence. Lies. Complete lies. I had never asked Dad for money beyond the initial business loan he'd insisted on giving me. But Patricia delivered each lie with such conviction, such perfect timing, that people believed her. I could see it in their faces, the way they looked at me with pity mixed with judgment. She was systematically destroying my reputation and Dad's memory at the same time, making him seem cruel and making me seem spoiled, all while playing the victim herself. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locking the door and leaning against the sink. I pulled out my phone to distract myself from the emotions churning in my stomach. I opened my banking app, something I did habitually without thinking. The screen loaded and then displayed an error message. Access restricted. Please contact branch. My heart dropped. I had 3 accounts at Dad's bank. Accounts he'd helped me set up years ago. One was my personal checking account, one was my business account, and one was an emergency savings account he'd insisted I maintain. We'd set them up with joint access so he could transfer money if I ever needed help. I called the bank's customer service line, my hands shaking as I navigated the automated system. When I finally reached a representative, she told me in a professionally apologetic voice that Patricia Brooks had visited the branch that morning with a death certificate and power of attorney documents. All joint accounts had been closed or modified to remove my access. But those were my accounts, I said, my voice cracking despite my efforts to stay calm. She wasn't even on them. The power of attorney supersedes previous arrangements, ma'am. I'm sorry. She'd locked me out of my own money. I hung up and immediately called the DMV using my phone's browser. The automated system let me check my vehicle registration status. I entered my license plate number with trembling fingers. This vehicle's title is currently being transferred. The process was initiated this morning. My car. She was taking my car. The Honda Civic I'd bought myself 3 years ago, that I'd registered in my name, that had nothing to do with Dad or his estate. She was stealing it anyway. I called the DMV's customer service line, but they told me the transfer was already in progress. Patricia had shown up with a power of attorney document, a bill of sale claiming Dad had paid for the car, and registration papers. Everything had looked legitimate enough to process. But that's fraud, I said desperately. She didn't pay for that car. I did. You'll need to dispute that through legal channels, ma'am. Once the transfer is complete, the vehicle belongs to the name on the new title. I sat in the bathroom stall, my mind racing. Bank accounts. Car title. What else had she already taken? What else could she take before I even realized it was gone? I left the reception without saying goodbye to anyone. I couldn't stand another minute of Patricia's performance or my family's enabling silence. I drove straight to my apartment, the small 1-bedroom I'd rented 2 years ago when I started my business, and started checking everything. Credit cards. Still active, but I called and added fraud alerts. Business accounts. Still secure because they were solely in my name. Storage unit. I called and changed the access code immediately. My lease. Safe in my name only. But then I checked my health insurance. The family plan through Dad's company had been terminated that morning. Patricia had called the insurance company, provided a death certificate, and removed me from the policy. I had 30 days of coverage left and then nothing. I checked my phone plan. Also through Dad's company account. A text notification showed it had been suspended an hour ago. My phone would stop working by midnight unless I switched to a different plan. She was systematically erasing me from every system where Dad's name had provided access or support. Quickly, efficiently, and legally. I spent 3 hours on the phone that evening, securing what I could and documenting what I couldn't. I opened a new bank account at a different institution. I bought a new phone plan. I called my landlord to confirm my lease was secure. I photographed every important document I owned. By midnight, I was exhausted and furious. I kept thinking about the will, about Dad's signature that didn't look quite right, about the paper quality, about the timing. 2 months ago when he was weak and medicated and barely conscious half the time. I couldn't let this go. But the anti-contest clause meant I couldn't hire a lawyer without risking $50,000 I didn't have. Patricia had structured everything perfectly to silence me. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling when my phone buzzed with an email. The sender was from Dad's law firm, not Mr. Palmer, but someone named Kyle Morrison. The subject line read, "Regarding Thomas Brooks' estate." My heart pounded as I opened it. The message was brief. "Miss Brooks, I worked as a clerk at your father's firm. I need to speak with you privately. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Coffee Bean on Maple Street. Come alone. Don't tell anyone." I read it 3 times, my mind racing. A trap, a trick, or help. I arrived at the Coffee Bean 15 minutes early, scanning the nearly empty cafe for threats or witnesses. Kyle Morrison sat in a back corner booth, a young man in his mid-20s wearing a dress shirt and nervous expression. He had a folder on the table in front of him. I slid into the seat across from him without ordering coffee. "You said you worked at Dad's firm." "I'm a junior clerk. I handle filing and document preparation." He pushed his glasses up his nose, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "I need to tell you something, but if anyone finds out I talked to you, I'll lose my job." "What is it?" He opened the folder and pulled out a document. "This is your father's will. The real one. He finalized it 8 months ago when he first got diagnosed. I was there when he signed it. I witnessed it along with 2 other employees." My breath caught. And this isn't the will that went to probate." He pulled out another document, the one I recognized from the reading. "This version appeared 2 weeks after your father died. Miss Patricia brought it in herself. She forged it. I don't know how she did it, but..." He paused, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Your father never signed that final copy. I'm certain of it," Kyle explained in a rush, his words tumbling over each other. "Mr. Brooks was very specific about his will. He updated it right after his diagnosis because he wanted everything in order. The original left the house to you, all investments to you, everything. Patricia got $100,000 and could stay in the house for 6 months. That was it." I felt my chest tighten. "So what happened?" "Your father got really sick about 2 months before he died. He was in and out of the hospital, barely conscious most days from the pain medication. One of those days, Patricia came to the office alone. She said Thomas wanted to make changes to his will. She had paperwork with her. Amendments, she called them. Mr. Palmer was out of town, so she worked with one of the other partners. And they just let her change everything. She had power of attorney documents, medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, everything. It all looked legitimate. The partner who helped her, he's pretty new to the firm. He didn't know your father well. He processed what she brought. My hands were shaking. But the signature. I saw your father's real signature dozens of times. The one on that new will isn't the same. It's close, but it's not his natural hand. Someone traced it, probably from another document." Kyle slid the original will across the table to me. "I made you a copy. You didn't get this from me, understand? I could go to jail for stealing firm documents. But what Patricia did, it's wrong. Your father was a good man. He wouldn't have left you like that." I took the document with trembling hands, staring at Dad's real signature, the flowing, confident script I'd known my whole life. Then I looked at the signature on the probate will. Different. Definitely different once you knew what to look for. "What do I do?" "Yes. The will has an anti-contest clause. If I challenge it, you'll need proof of forgery. Solid, undeniable proof. Signature analysis, witnesses, medical records proving your father couldn't have signed documents during that time period. It's possible, but it'll be expensive and difficult. He stood up, closing his folder. I have to go. I've already risked too much. But you deserve to know the truth. He left quickly, disappearing into the afternoon crowd. I sat alone with the two wills in front of me, my father's real wishes and Patricia's forgery. My grief had transformed. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was something colder, sharper, more focused. It was strategy. Patricia thought she'd won. She thought the anti-contest clause would keep me silent. She thought she'd covered her tracks perfectly. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I was my father's daughter. He'd taught me patience, planning, and persistence. And now I had proof she'd forged his will. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time I had no intention of staying quiet. What happened next changed everything. Don't miss the next episode.